set 4. Do next. Should we change the color? You guys think of orange? We roll with orange. P brown. Yeah, how do I turn that light off? That's totally horrendous. It's a little bit orange? Should I go blue or something? You're cool with orange? I'll try and change it next time. Lecture 18. All right, what time we got? Okay, let's get going. So I wasn't here on Tuesday, and the lecture is webcast, and it's on webcast.berkeley.edu. Make sure that you look up the one for spring and not for fall, just because, I mean, it'll be better, hopefully. Well, that was my first time doing it at home, so apologies to the lame production values. We're one lecture off of the fall, so it wouldn't exactly sync right if you were looking at the fall lecture. Couple other housekeeping things. Problem set 4 is due on Tuesday. I was going to talk through it a little bit today. I don't know if you guys have already done it, but I can talk through it like just as a way of reviewing where we are, because we're sort of like in the middle of the class, in the middle of what we want to be working on. And then I have office hours after this, and I'm happy to like work through the little nuggets and talk through what, you know, some of the questions not exactly clear what they're thinking. That's why I added my little notes trying to guide you towards what I wanted for an answer. And somebody had written about the grading on the B courses, and I just want to say, like, the grading on the B courses has your grades for your midterm and your problem sets, but like the way that it aggregates into a course grade, don't pay attention to that because it's haven't figured out how to like make it add up right. The idea is the problems, everything adds up to the percents that it says in the syllabus, like 30%, 30%, 40%. The podcast that we did just add up to be an extra credit on your homework, but they have this huge value on the B courses thing, so please ignore the final value column on the B courses thing, because I don't really know how to program it yet, and I'll try and make that smoother towards the end. Questions about that? Okay. All right, so problem set 4 has 3 different questions, and I just wanted to just draw the graphs for the 3 different sections. I think you only need to draw the graph in the first one, but it's helpful to think through the graphs, to think about where we are and what we know for each graphs. So question 1 of problem set 4 has, you guys get this right. When you look at this problem set and you look at the people who name the companies, who own the companies, you're supposed to get this economist joke. Friedman Inc., famous Nobel economist, Arrow, Solo, I don't know who Buchanan is, but he's naming his polluting firms after famous economists. So you have a quadratic function for profits and then a linear function for marginal benefits. So basically we'll have a marginal benefit function, and then we have how much pollution they're making. We have a marginal, well, I have to make this go up higher so I can, a marginal damages function. We have, if the polluter was allowed to pollute as much as they wanted, they would pollute until marginal benefit equal to 0. So we have point 1 down here with this full level of pollution. Then we have a societally efficient level of pollution where marginal benefit equal to marginal damages. So we have point 2 down here. And then question 1 is mostly thinking about the question of deadweight loss. So at this inefficient point, we have a whole bunch of damages up here that are being incurred, much higher than the efficient point here. So we have this huge, my dashed lines are going astray. We have a huge deadweight loss triangle here. That's our welfare of being away from the socially efficient point, from letting the polluter pollute as much as they want. I think this is in, I'm on the wrong page. I think what's interesting about the way they do it, the way it's done here, part D, sorry. Part D, you can either do this by plugging in the values for net benefits. There's a formula for net benefits, which is profit minus damages. And you're going to get the same deadweight loss number if you calculate this as a triangle, as we calculated stuff already, or if you plug in these values for profits and damages. So that's just like a nice little math lesson of this part of the homework, is seeing you can use these profit and damage quadratic functions and plug in these values, and you'll get this deadweight loss number. Or you can use these marginal values and look for an area. Areas under curves are representing the values in the full functions. So it's like calculus backwards. So that's question 1. Question 2 is about regulation. So again, we're going to have the same curves where we have the polluting industry with decreasing marginal benefits curve, and then the more pollution we get, an increasing marginal damages curve. Again, we have some point, if allowed to pollute as much as they wanted, we'll have a point where they set marginal benefits equal to 0 and pollute at this full amount. We'll have an efficient point where marginal benefits equal to marginal damages. And then we can think of in this one, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but either it's 0 or some low level, we can have some question about where we have full cleanup. So 0 pollution. Or it's either that or it's a low level pollution, it doesn't matter. Pollution. Right, so we have 3 different points to consider. What we introduce in this one is we can figure out the price equals, and the price we're going to solve. We're going to solve by where marginal damages equal marginal benefits. And then we have a whole bunch of questions like parts E and part F, where I'm going to point out there's this quote in here, can negotiate at no cost. This is this quote, right? Which, in this class, for example, whenever you hear that, you're going to say, oh, they're going to have a Coasian bargain. If they can negotiate at no cost, they're going to have a Coasian payment, right? One is going to pay the other to get to the efficient point. So if we're out here at the full pollution level at point 1, The marginal damages are far above this equilibrium price, and the marginal benefits are far below. So some payment will be made to get back to this point. We don't know exactly what this payment is. We just know that they can negotiate and sort of, somewhere in here. This isn't part of the homework. I'm just free drawing, right? But they could be making some sort of payment. We don't know exactly what level of payment it would be, but we know that this price here, these guys could pay the polluters something above this price to get back to this efficient point. If we were at zero pollution, the benefits to the polluter are really much higher than they are to have zero pollution to the people getting polluted, and so the polluters would be able to make a payment up to this price to the polluters to get out here. So if we're moving here, the payment gets us this way. If we're out here, the payment gets us this way, which is basically like chapter 11. And then the question 3 is more about a market for tradable permits. So the way question 3 starts out is there's two different polluters. One's like something like this, and one's something like this. And they're both going to pollute out to where marginal benefits, they have different marginal benefit curves. Two polluters have different marginal benefit curves. They're both going to pollute out to where they set marginal benefits equal to 0 to some full level of pollution. That's an unregulated level of pollution. But then we have a regulator who's going to impose a total amount of pollution. So we're going to put them in a box and have this box be the total amount of pollution, quantity of pollution that's in the box. And if we have two polluters in this box, their marginal benefit curves are going to both be inside the box, right? And so this is the quantity of pollution 1. The quantity of pollution 2 is going this way. So the total amount of pollution is the width of the box. The marginal benefits or the prices are the axes. Marginal benefits to polluter 1, marginal benefits to polluter 2. So we have some equilibrium point where their marginal benefits are equal. And the way we solve that is we set marginal benefit 1 equals marginal benefit 2, but we also have Q1 plus Q2 equals this Q like that we fixed. The regulator has decided there should be only so many units of pollution. So we can substitute this equation into this equation, so we can reduce and just have one, just solve for either Q1 or Q2. And once we get that, we can solve for the other one. So, and a lot of times we'll have in these cases, we'll say, what if we split up the permits equally? What if we have a 50-50 point in the middle, right? If we have a 50-50 point in the middle, we know that if that's not out our efficient point here, we solve for these quantities. So the quantity 1 going this way, and the quantity 2 going this way. We solve for that with this mathematical equation. And we also came up with this price, this marginal benefit level. So this is the marginal benefit to polluter 1 at the efficient point, marginal benefit to polluter 2 at the efficient point. Some market clearing price for the permits to be here. If we have that 50-50 point, then this polluter would be willing to buy some permits from polluter number 2 to get over to this point. If we have these profit functions, which we've had throughout the problem set, now we have some benefits and they sold the permits. So say they sold the permits at the permit price. So we subtract the cost of the permits from the polluter 1 profits, and we add the cost of the permits to the polluter 2's profits when we're making a deal to get from this point to this point. You guys kind of following this along? Does it make sense? I don't know if you actually have to draw the graph in this one, but I'm trying to just relate it to the other things that we've done. So when you're solving it, you can be thinking through. I think it's mostly done mathematically in this one, but we want to think about what's happening to get us to other points. So this is in problem 2, problem set, problem 3. They're labeled problem 2 on here. I don't know if it's like this on yours. When we set up a market for permits, how many permits do we give each of the polluters? If we don't give them exactly the number of permits that they end up wanting to use, one's going to buy some permits from the other. When we calculate these profits, right, so early on it's motivated by we have some profit function. That's like a quadratic, 10QA minus QA squared minus Q2 squared or something like that. So when we calculate the final profits, we have to include how much they paid or sold their permits for, right? So what we think is it's going to be worth this person to buy these permits and get the value of this extra profit. And it's going to be worth for this person to forego this production and get the value of this selling the permits. But we just want to make sure that we have, so this is the profit function before. Let's say this is the profit function before, and then we have a little payment that one makes to the other for the permits. Okay? So that is in the last question, part C. Who will buy permits? Who will sell? How much will they pollute? What will the permit price? What will their profits be? And then, so you're going through these in this question 3, and then hopefully at the, part F, I think you make like a table, and you're like, this is the tax, this is the subsidy, this is permits, and then this would be firm 1, firm 2, and then you can sort of, by filling these in, see like what the level of the profits are and what the level of output is. Did you have a question? Yeah. The pollution for firm 2 is going this way. Yeah? Yeah. What's that? No, this one up here? So the profit with Q in it, plus the number of permits that you bought. Just the additional. This distance here, Q purchased. I'm not doing good with subscripts here. So it would be the profit at Q plus Q purchased times the price of permits. I hope I'm not making this more confusing. Maybe it'll be less confusing when you do the homework. I'm trying to motivate like what's behind the homework so that you can see how it's relating to what we're talking to in class and sort of like bring that in. And we can talk some more about this as we go a little bit through today. You guys okay with this so far? And I tried, so I have these little notes in italics that I added to the problem set. That was like me trying to steer you towards how to solve things. So today we're talking about regulation. We've already been talking about regulation. Today we're going to talk about compliance and enforcement. But so we talked about regulation in the last lecture. But today we're going to move past regulation. We can figure out what the regulation is, what a level of pollution we want to be at is. But on top of that, we need to add a little bit more on what it means to get to that point. Whether we can monitor the polluters. I tried to talk about this last time. Which regulation you choose might be related to which type of, how easy it is to monitor. The point source pollution is easier to monitor. The non-point source pollution is very difficult to monitor. And how difficult it is to enforce things. Does your environmental regulatory part of the government have teeth to it or not? There's lots of parts of the world that, China, Russia, India have strict environmental regulations on the books, but their capacity to do anything about enforcement, to follow up on laws, is very limited, right? There's not a teeth to the environmental ministry where legal or civil penalties are in place. Polluters have a lot more political capital than environmental regulators. And then today we'll be talking about penalties. What does it mean to say if you have polluted more than you're supposed to? We have set some sort of Q star based on a regulatory graph. The polluter keeps polluting. What sort of penalties are we going to put out there for violating our environmental regulations? So this is the question of compliance. Compliance is, there's regulations, there's firms out there. Do those firms follow the regulations? Do the firms comply with the law? That's what compliance gets to. And importantly, this isn't just a problem for environmental regulations. This is a problem for all sorts of governmental regulations. We see this a ton with financial regulations. Big banks, proprietary trading firms, hedge funds, they do what they want to do. Congress tries to scramble and tries to regulate them and tries to figure out how to make things safer in the financial world, but really tough to dig down and get inside. Is there insider trading on Wall Street? Yes, there always has been and there always will be. People will do whatever they can and not get caught, right? So we have this in the world of pollution. Pollution that's reducing the amount that firms can produce, that's lowering their costs. So we have, sort of built into the structure of our economy that compliance is a big issue. What we need to also think about is how to do this consistently. How do we get it applied fairly across firms? Because you don't want to favor one firm or favor one state or favor one sector. We want to be able to apply consistently across firms. And if we have multiple firms or multiple polluters or multiple diesel truck manufacturers, we need to get them all lowering their pollution or adding the costs that we think should be added in consistently across. So we need this to be happening across firms. Otherwise, one firm's polluting, they have a competitive advantage. And then we have we've already talked about monitoring. How often do we get data about people? How many times a year do we visit the polluter? How many times a year is our database of what emissions are going to get updated? So in certain cases, if it's a big power plant and we can install monitors, we can install release monitor either right on the smokestack or right on the fence on the edge of the factory property. Then we can have continuous real-time monitoring. We can see things that are happening. We can have lawsuits. We can go to Chevron. They can install them in Chevron on the pipes that are causing these emissions. And this is important too because sometimes the emissions are only once in a month or only once in a year, but we need to have some sort of presence that's doing this continuously monitoring to capture when pollution is happening intermittently, right? There's only some escape when something goes wrong, but we want to capture how much is that? How much is the fine that we're going to impose? If we only went once a year, twice a year, once a month, we wouldn't capture that. We wouldn't be able to put that fine on the polluter in the right way. There's a lot of other types of pollution where we only get intermittent chances to go there, right? We only get intermittent chances to check. You take your car to the smog check station like once every 2 years, right? So you only have once every 2 years to check whether that vehicle's been polluted, even if it's been operating all day, every day. We have a regulator going to visit the factory once a year. This is a big one in food safety too. They can just clean up, do things cleanly while the regulator's there, but can they do things? Can we make surprise visits or more frequent visits or install cameras? Here's like for wildlife and biodiversity, a game warden, right? There's only one warden, there's only one park ranger making some sort of limited visibility moving around. You would get a fine if you poached out of the national forest lands, but people can know that they can sneak in. Maybe the value of what they're poaching is so high that the expected penalty is low enough that they'll keep trespassing. So if we have the coal-fired smokestacks and sulfur dioxide emissions, and we're requiring them to put scrubbers on their smokestacks, costs hundreds of millions of dollars. It's $1 billion electricity plant. So in the sulfur dioxide trading scheme, it's not that much. Maybe we're going to put $10,000, $50,000 worth of equipment on the top of that smokestack. It's a small cost relative to the huge capital cost of building the plant. You want to participate in our sulfur dioxide scheme, you need to add these monitors so that we know you're complying. You're not emitting more than the permits that you buy. We're only requiring you to submit data from this certified equipment on this type of real-time monitor of sulfur dioxide emissions. If you have a sewage treatment plant, you're a municipality, you're releasing to the river, you're releasing to San Francisco Bay, we can have some inline monitors now. It used to be measurements hourly or sub-hourly, but now